Speaking of our kids and the public education system, let's back up a little bit and remind you of what's going on out there. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona in hot water because now we've got the proof that it was this Biden administration and this Secretary of Education who directed Attorney General Garland to refer to parents as domestic terrorists. And it's in a memo from October 4th. This is Parents Defending Education found out about it. Why? Because they filed a Freedom of Information Act request that revealed the emails to prove that Cardona's friends over at the National School Board Association were all working together to put this in motion against you and me, because I've been going to my kids' meetings and speaking out too. October 5th email from NSBA member Marnie Maldonado to NSBA Secretary Treasury Christy Sweat reads this, quote, "I'm very concerned about the process by which the statement was made and the tone that essentially allowed the White House to direct the Attorney General to consider members of our community domestic terrorists. I agree that we need to focus on civility and we should be looking to our local law enforcement to protect board members and deal with any threats of violence." In another email from the 6th of October, Christy replies, "At the time, no, I didn't think the letter fell under an emergency situation. It certainly was not characterized that way when Chip told the officers he was writing a letter to provide information to the White House from a request by Secretary Cardona." Now, if you recall, in Garland's October memo that came days after the NSBA urged Biden to help them, please help us. Everybody's being threatened. These parents are bullies. We can't take it. Garland's letter said, quote, "In recent months, there has been a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence against school administrators, board members, teachers, and staff who participate in the vital work of running our nation's public schools. While spirited debate about policy matters is protected in our Constitution," thanks for pointing that out, "that protection does not extend to threats of violence or efforts to intimidate individuals based on their views," end quote. We brought you that one a while back. Now, back in October, when Garland was questioned by members of Congress under oath, he said, "That's not what we meant. We didn't mean that everybody that's going to the meetings is a terrorist. We didn't mean that." Watch.
I believe that parents who testify, speak, argue with, complain about school boards and schools should be classified as domestic terrorists or any kind of criminals. Parents have been complaining about the education of their children and about school boards since there were such things as school boards and public education. This is totally protected by the First Amendment.
You ever notice when somebody's not confident in what they're saying or they're just a lying piece of trash, how their voice breaks up and cackles? "I believe that it's not what we were saying," because you know you're lying. Then when the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, you know, Chucky, was asked about how the administration allowed this absurdity to happen for parents to be labeled as a domestic terrorist, here's how she tried to do the old Potomac two-step around that question. Watch.
The administration agreed that parents upset about their kids' curriculums could be considered domestic terrorists.
Well, let me unravel this a little bit, because the National School Board Association is not a part of the U.S. government. I'd point you to them. What the Department of Justice said in a letter from the Attorney General is that, quote, "threats against public servants are not only illegal, they run counter to our nation's core values." That is true. These were threats against public servants, threats against members of the school board. Regardless of the reasoning, threats and violence against public servants is illegal.
No kidding, Jen. I'm against anybody making threats. That's illegal. But you didn't answer the damn question. And now we know that your Secretary of Education pushed the unions to send the letter to Merrick so Merrick would label us all as domestic terrorists. So it came from Biden. So what should parents be doing to fight this? Nicole Neily is the president of Parents Defending Education. Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for helping to expose all this. Wow. Nicole, what do we do?
What do we do? I mean, absolutely, the American public deserves answers. What happened? Who was involved? What was said? And when? And if this is something, I mean, as you alluded to, the timing of this is extremely suspicious, because if the Secretary of Education seems to have prompted this outside organization to send a letter that was then turned around by the Department of Justice in 5 days, which is warp speed for a federal government agency, to then, right? I mean, to then kick into effect the FBI, mobilize, U.S. attorneys, all these other things. And let's not forget, at the same time, actually, that same week, it kind of got lost in the shuffle, the NEA actually sent a letter to big tech companies asking them to use their powers to silence parents that are speaking out at some of these meetings. So they sent it to Twitter and Facebook and TikTok. And so there is, this very much appears to be an extremely concerted effort. And so we deserve answers, because this is being done against us with our tax dollars, and people should be held accountable. And not just at the National School Board Association, in the federal government. This is unacceptable.
Yeah, I mean, you're being very forgiving and nice about the timing of this. I like to just, say it like it is, and let's be real. They did it, okay? The timing's not weird. They did it. This administration is great at messaging. They're great at cover-ups until you ask for a Freedom of Information Act, and we say, give us the details, and they've got to cough it up, hopefully not redacted, and then you can put 2 and 2 together, and it does equal 4. That's how I was taught in school, okay? None of this woke education crap that 2 + 2, it's whatever you want to make it, especially if you're a minority or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Again, this all goes into this, the wokeness in schools, the CRT, the mandates, and the calling parents domestic terrorists for simply going to school boards and getting involved in their kids' education. Because let's be real, for decades, I think a lot of parents got busy and weren't paying attention, and this plan, whatever you want to call it, demic, where the kids were home for almost 2 years, parents could listen and see on the computer, holy crap, my kid's teacher is a nut job. And no, I'm not throwing all teachers under the bus, Nicole. There's a lot of amazing ones out there, but there are some radical wackos out there that are breaking the rules and not teaching out of the books. Let's be real, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Parents are they question what's going on in school, and they're justifiably angry. They're mad at the war on merit, at advanced classes being taken away in the name of equity. Because some people are special and that hurts other people's feelings, we have to make nobody special. So like you said, with math classes, things like that, kids are not being taught calculus or things that they need to succeed in a global marketplace. And so this push for equity, this push towards kids not being in school, facing learning loss, and then when they are back in school, they're getting social emotional learning and social justice things pushed down their throat instead of actually learning how to read, write, and do math. And so, it's no wonder that kids are depressed. Mental health is at an all-time low, because half the kids, when they're in school, are told you're a bad person or you're a loser because of the color of your skin and your gender. And so, yeah, it's a little wonder that our kids are suffering right now.
And they got to wear a mask.
Our tax dollars.
Yeah, and they got to wear a mask so they can't see expression from the teacher, from their fellow friends and students. I mean, next to the opioid crisis, which I think is one of the biggest epidemics in this country right now, not COVID any longer, okay? The Omicron is not killing people whatsoever. Let's talk about the drugs, and let's talk about education. This is now an epidemic, what we're doing to our kids, and we've done for 2 years. My final question to you, I want to go back to the beginning of the program. I brought up this thing in Illinois, where they're allowing an after-school program to teach about Satan. That's where we've come to. 200 and some years, a country based and created on religious freedoms, on Judeo-Christian beliefs. Now we're cool with talking about Satan at an after-school program for elementary kids. What is going on?
Inclusivity, right? I mean, but also let's bear in mind that these districts have finite time, finite money, finite resources, and so who does not have access to that facility when the Satanists do? I mean, I think a lot of these districts, they say one thing, but their actions belie another. And so to me, I think this raises a lot of questions as to, what kind of money, so I think, again, the poor parents in Moline, Illinois deserve significant answers to that. Because, this, I mean, yeah, as you implied, like, it's kind of unforgivable, and it's really awkward and horrible.
It's sickening, and we're spiraling downward as a country. And look what we're doing to the kids. And they're supposed to lead us in the future. It's scary, scary stuff. Get involved, parents. Nicole Neily, president of Parents Defending Education, thank you so much for what you're doing out there to fight for truth and to help our children's education in the public school system. Take care. Have a good weekend.